Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my Slow English podcast. My name is Anna, and I'm very happy you're here with me today. Today, I'd like to tell you something that completely changed the way I think about learning languages. Maybe it will change the way you think, too. Have you ever had a day when English felt easy? You understood a podcast. You remembered new words. You even spoke a little. And then, the very next day, everything felt difficult again. Suddenly, you forgot simple words. Listening felt impossible. Speaking felt frustrating. And maybe you asked yourself, am I forgetting everything? If you've ever felt that way, I want you to know something. You are not failing. Your brain is learning, exactly the way it was designed to learn. Many people believe that becoming fluent means learning more and more words, more grammar, more rules, more vocabulary lists. Of course, those things are important, but they are not what creates fluency. Fluency is something different. Fluency is not about how much English you know. It's about how easily your brain can find the English it already knows. Imagine that your brain is like a forest. The first time you walk through it, there is no path. You move slowly. Branches are everywhere. You have to stop. You have to think. The journey feels difficult. But then you walk the same path again, and again, and again. Little by little, the grass becomes flatter. The branches move aside. The path becomes clearer. Eventually, you don't even think about where to step. Your brain works in a very similar way. Every time you listen to English, every time you read a sentence, every time you speak, your brain is building a small path. At first, that path is very weak. You forget words. You stop speaking. You need time to remember. And that's completely normal. But every time you come back, the path becomes stronger, a little wider, a little easier to follow. This is why consistency is so powerful. Not because you learn something new every single day, but because you strengthen the paths you've already built. Many learners become worried when they forget a word. They think, I knew this yesterday. Why can't I remember it today? But forgetting is not the opposite of learning. Forgetting is actually part of learning. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. The first time, you probably fell. Maybe many times. That didn't mean you were bad at riding a bicycle. It meant your brain was learning a new skill. Learning English works the same way. Every mistake, every forgotten word, every pause is part of the process. So please, don't be afraid of forgetting. Be afraid of giving up. Because every time you return, your brain becomes stronger. Now, let's talk about listening. Many people say, I understand Anna, but I don't understand native speakers. There is a reason for that. When you listen to slow English, your brain has enough time to recognize patterns. It notices how sentences are built. It notices how words connect together. Little by little, those patterns become familiar. And one day, when you hear them in a faster conversation, your brain says, I know this. That is why listening is never wasted time. Even when you feel like you're doing nothing, your brain is quietly working behind the scenes. Imagine building a puzzle. At first, every piece looks confusing. You don't know where anything belongs. Then, One piece fits, then another, then another. One day, you suddenly see the whole picture. Language is exactly like that. You don't become fluent in one magical moment. You become fluent one connection at a time. Now, I'd like to talk about something that surprises many English learners. Listening and speaking are not the same skill. Think about a baby. Long before a baby says the first word, the baby has already listened for many months. Every day, the brain is collecting sounds, collecting words, collecting patterns. Only later does the child begin to speak. Our brains still learn languages in a very similar way. You can understand much more English than you can speak, and that is completely normal. Many learners become worried. They say, "I understand this podcast, but I could never say these sentences myself." Let me tell you a secret. Your brain is storing far more English than you realize. Some words are easy to find, others are still waiting. Imagine your brain is a huge library. Thousands of books are already there. But when someone asks you a question, you need to find the right book, the right page, and the right sentence. Sometimes that takes time. Not because the book is missing, because your brain is still learning where to find it. This is why speaking feels slower than listening. Listening is recognizing. Speaking is remembering. Remembering is harder, but every time you speak, your brain becomes faster. Let's imagine something together. You meet an old friend. At first, you don't remember their name, but after a few seconds, it suddenly appears. "Oh, of course, I remember." English words often work the same way. They're already inside your brain. They simply need a little more time to appear. That's why I always say, please, be patient with yourself. Your brain is doing more work than you can see. Now, I'd like to tell you about something called active and passive vocabulary. Don't worry, it's much simpler than it sounds. Passive vocabulary means the words you understand. You hear them, you read them, you recognize them. Active vocabulary means the words you use when you speak. Here's something that might surprise you. For most learners, their passive vocabulary is much bigger than their active vocabulary. In other words, you already know more English than you think. Your goal is not always to learn more words. Sometimes, your goal is simply to use the words you already know. Imagine you own a beautiful piano, but every day you only play the same 5 keys. Does that mean the piano has only 5 keys? Of course not. The other keys are still there. You just haven't used them enough. Your English is very similar. Every conversation opens another key. Every sentence makes another word easier to remember. Every podcast helps another connection become stronger. So the next time you think, "I don't know enough English," try asking yourself a different question. What English do I already know that I'm not using? Sometimes that small change in thinking changes everything. And that's why I don't want you to measure your progress by how many words you study. I want you to measure it by something else. How often do you use English? How often do you speak? How often do you listen? How often do you come back even after a difficult day. Because fluency is not built in one perfect study session. It's built every time you decide to begin again. And every time you press play, every time you listen, every time you say one more sentence, your brain is quietly changing, more than you realize. Before we finish today, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. Imagine that someone plants a tiny seed. The next morning, they go outside. Nothing has changed. The seed is still invisible. The second day, still nothing. The third day, nothing. If they stop watering the seed because they can't see it, it will never grow. Learning English can feel exactly the same. Sometimes, you don't notice your progress. You listen to another podcast. You learn another word. You practice another sentence. And it feels like nothing is changing. But something is changing. You just can't see it yet. Your brain is making thousands of tiny connections. Every podcast you listen to makes one more connection. Every sentence you read makes another. Every conversation builds another path. One day, something wonderful happens. You hear an English sentence and you understand it without translating. A few weeks later, you answer a simple question without thinking. Then one day, someone asks you something, and English simply appears. Not because you forced it, because your brain finally built the path. Many people think fluency happens all at once. It doesn't. It happens quietly. So quietly that sometimes you don't even notice it. One day, you suddenly realize, I understood that movie. I had my first conversation. I didn't translate that sentence. I actually thought in English. Those moments don't happen by accident. They happen because of everything you did before. Every podcast, every page, every mistake. Every day you decided not to give up. So today, I'd like to ask you one question. What if you stopped worrying about becoming fluent and started enjoying the journey instead? What if, instead of asking, how long will this take, you asked, what can I learn today? Because fluency is not a destination. It's something you build, little by little, day by day, conversation by conversation. There is one more thing I'd like you to remember. Please, don't compare yourself to other people. Someone will always know more words. Someone will always speak faster. Someone will always have a better accent. But there is only one person you should compare yourself to. The person you were yesterday. If today you understand one more sentence, if today you remember one more word, if today you have the courage to speak, even for 30 seconds, you are moving forward. And that is enough. Maybe 1 year from now, you'll come back to this episode. You'll listen again and smile. Because the English that feels difficult today will feel natural. Not because you became perfect, but because you never stopped. Thank you for spending these few minutes with me today. Thank you for choosing to learn. Thank you for believing that change is possible. And remember, your brain is learning, even on the days when it doesn't feel like it. Trust the process. Be patient with yourself. Keep listening. Keep speaking. Keep going. Because one day, without even realizing it, English will begin to feel like a part of you. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.